I will say I think last week's episode was a little bit off track, to be honest. I don't quite know what happened. I just remember the fact that I kept going on different tangents here and there as I normally do, and as I'm getting into the whole podcast thing, I'm gonna try and stick to the same point. It's just I have a habit of diverting off track a lot. This week's episode is a bit of a mishmash going off of that. It's all about just relationships in general, friendships in general, and how I think as you get older, relationships become a lot more. You need to be having relationships with people that are a lot more defined, a lot more grounded, a lot more matured. And as I said last week, I'm pretty sure I did, I have slept since then. When you grow up with a person, you have to grow up with them. And what I mean by that is if a friendship or a relationship gets to a point where you're still behaving as if you were, kids in your teens, further into your adulthood, those are sort of friendships that can have, how do I put it, can start to diminish over time. Many of the friends I have had over the years, that has very much happened. That has very much been the case. And what I want to talk to you guys about is you have to keep in mind of your own progression and your own status in life. And I say this very loosely, purely for the fact of you don't know always how to approach certain scenarios. As I spoke about with honesty, if you can't be honest for a relationship, it's not a good relationship. And I use relationships as a umbrella term for any, how you are with your family, how you are with your friends, how you are in romantic relationships. I just put relationships as a whole, just to save myself from repeating the same set of words over and over again. And I think the difficulty is it's a lot. It's a lot easier with siblings, with family, for that to be the case. If as you grow up and you start to develop your own identity and your own morals and your own standings, it's a lot easier with family to decide whether you want to keep them around all the time in your life. Friends is a little bit more difficult. Friends know a lot more than your family do. You tell your friends a lot, you know, your deepest, darkest secrets. You put all your cards on your sleeve for them. I mean, I do personally. And it can become quite challenging to maintain these friendships, I've done it again, maintain these relationships because not everyone is going to follow the same direct path as you. And that isn't always a bad thing, it should be the case of where you develop parallel to each other. But the further and further away you get from a person is the further and further away you drift. And when I say that, when you look at a parallel line, it should be the case where you're both running parallel and you may not always be going at the same pace, may not be always going, doing the same things. There's no order to which life happens. Life just happens. And that's something that I think I will drill home is life just happens. There is no set clock. There is no time limit into what you're doing. Obviously, biologically, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit on the side of you know, when you can have kids and things like that. Societal potentialities, like you may not be able to get on a more property ladder in your 40s, but that's a completely different conversation for another day. What I mean more is the fact that you could be friends with someone for a long time and your lives run somewhat parallel to each other, but the minute you start to kind of speed off, and it's not intentional, it's not an intentional thing, you just kind of, it just happens where you just speed off in your interaction. And I think the difficulty with that is you always have it in your heart that you don't want to leave anyone behind. You want to keep everyone and you want to bring everyone up with you to where you're at, but it doesn't always happen for some people. Some people, it takes a lot longer than others to reach that point. It's not to suggest that you don't have these people in your life, but you kind of get to a point where you do have to keep them at arm's length because you can't always make the time to see them. And when you do make the time to see these people, spend time with these people, it should matter. It should count for something. But there is also a point where you can have a habit within certain relationships where you have to speed up a inevitable process of an eventuality of you drifting away and you not talking anymore, and that's okay. You will miss these people when they're gone, and you will think about all the memories you have, but retain the good memories. Even if you fell out with a person, take it as a necessary step into your future and the life that you're building for yourself. You can't be you can't be other people's expectations of you. You should only have expectations of yourself within reason, and you should be able to progress through life as it was. Now, it's not easy, and I've definitely been on either end of the spectrum before, where there was a period of time where I was lagging behind and playing catch up, and by the time I caught up, it's too late. Friends have moved on, lives have been built, foundations have been set, roots have been rooted. It just happens. And you have to remind yourself that you meet thousands of people in your life. Thousands of people. And somewhat, you will hear from this person very soon when I eventually get him on to do an episode. But a wise man once told me, your life is like a bus. And you'll have the people that will sit on the bus for a very long time until they reach their destination. Or you get to a point where you reach the destination together. You have people that will jump on and off of it because of other people's buses they're on. Or you'll get the people that kind of just hop on for a minute, jump off at the closest destination. It's never linear, you know. If you're the type of person that still has your childhood best friend, then kudos to you. I'm glad that you were able to make that work. If the people you meet that you've known, they always say that after 7 years of being friends with someone, it's concreted. Yeah. Yeah, it is. But you can know people for over 7 years, and eventually you still get to a point where your narratives do not match with theirs. And when I say narratives, is your narrative of how you view life. And if people view life very differently to you, that is okay. But at the same time, there has to be some sort of comprehension into what you're doing and where you're going to be. And when you're friends with someone that doesn't share that narrative with you anymore, it's very difficult to communicate that. In some instances, they let you go. In some instances, they do the to be cruel, to be kind thing. There is no right or wrong way about it in that essence. I mean, depends subjective to what you've fallen out about or why you've drifted apart. You know, if you've in a generic setting, if you've you know, if you've done something wrong or you said something you shouldn't have done, words are very powerful, and words can end something in an instant, regardless of how much time is there. I know I've made that mistake before myself, and I am still grieving from it now. And you get to a point where you have to look at your life, you have to look at everything in front of you and think, what is going to sustain me, what is going to leisure me, and what is going to envelop me. I think envelop was probably the same term. You look at everything you have and you've got to assess what is important and what you should maintain. And when you maintain it, are you maintaining it for the betterment of your future, or are you maintaining it for the struggle to let go of something? And that's another thing, is the ability to let go of people even if they are gone. It's hard. It is hard even in relationships. You spend so long with a person. I've, you know, I've been with my partner for over 8 years, and I've pretty much lived with this person for the last 8 years. It does get harder after a while, and especially at my age when when you are growing up together. I I was in a relationship. I've been in a relationship since I was 18, and you have to learn to guide yourself and someone else through life. You guide each other through life as you mature and you get older, and the friends you have and the friends you make as you get older. You have to become mature, have to reach a point where even if you're not well, I say honest in this sense because there are certain groups of people that are just friends that you are honest with, but you keep certain cards close to your chest. But if it's just sort of daily standard of kind of living, of where, as far as points of view are concerned, you should be able to be unapologetically yourself in front of your friends. And I know this all sounds confusing, and you kind of have to digest everything that I say, which is why it's been so much of a struggle of kind of doing it on my own. We're on episode 5 now. I'm going to push to get other people to come on and engage with this podcast. But as with everything, time has always been an important factor, and when these people eventually go, it does take time to recover from it. It's it's not easy. I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy. It's not, because you could have known these people for most of your life, and you you can't always be friends with someone for a very long time. Yes, you can get to a point where relationships start to recuperate, and you come back after so many years and you start again, and you've both reached adulthood. Like, that does happen. So there isn't that maintaining. You kind of start afresh in the sense of you're both there, you're both in that place together, regardless, and you put the past behind you and you move on. But it doesn't mean that it's always an eventuality. It doesn't at all. And when you're younger, you always hold on to the idea that you're going to be, especially if you've moved away and you've been friends with someone for a long time in different towns. Your life, your lives are parallel, but from a lot further of a distance. It's a lot easier when you're living in a particular place, the same place together, to maintain that relationship, especially if you're lagging behind or they're lagging behind and things like that. It's a lot easier if you're both living within the same, with, I would say, at least a 10-20 minute drive. A 10-20 minute drive. Anywhere kind of like 30 to 50 minutes is where it starts to become a little bit more hard. Difficult was probably a better word. Because you won't be able to see these people every day. The only thing that's really confirmed, unless there are politics in it, is family. The whole point of when you move out your parents and you start building your own life and everything else, you don't see your parents all the time. You don't see your brothers and sisters all the time, but you do have that ability of being able to communicate either every day or once a week or every couple of months. But friends, especially when you're involved so much with each other's lives and you're living in different places, it becomes difficult. Especially when 75% of the effort is being put in by you. If you're always making the effort to go there and you're always making the effort because obviously if you're the only one that can drive or X, Y, and Z, it's okay for a time, like doing it, but it starts to weigh on you mentally, financially, sometimes even physically. Especially if you're in a position where you're having to care for that person at the same time, it does become difficult. It does become taxing. And what I'm trying to say is, if that relationship breaks down, it's okay for the emotions that you're feeling to be feeling when any relationship breaks down. Your emotions are valid, and that's, if you're listening to this and you're feeling this right now, your emotions will always be valid. There are no invalidated emotions. It's subjective to the scenario, of course, but I'm talking subjective in terms of the more darker side of people's actions and behaviors rather than just generically, your emotions are valid. And if anyone tries to invalidate your emotions, can't comprehend the emotion that you're feeling, can't comprehend how you're feeling and why you're feeling it, if they at least make an attempt to understand, then that, they are a genuinely good person. But if you're being brushed under the carpet and parred off because you're feeling that level of grief after losing someone that close to you, then don't engage with getting them to try and help you, because that creates a lot more problems than it's actually worth. It's hard. It's hard as you go through life and you start to shrink your circle down, and that's something that I've only just recently been made aware of how important that is. It's shrinking your circle down. You have your best friend, you have a group of friends, you have your relationship. Some people only just have a best friend, some people only just have a group of friends, some people only have a relationship. Obviously, in any of those scenarios, all the things that I've kind of explained has been important. Obviously, if there are pros and cons to a scenario where you only have just a best friend or just a group of friends or just a relationship, because you end up devoting a lot of your time to that person. Excuse me. That person or those people, and those are the only people that you see every day. If you can tolerate seeing these people or speaking to these people every day, especially if you're the type of person to sit on Discord voice chats with other people, then, you know. But the good thing about Discord, sorry to tangent off yet again, good thing about Discord is you can speak to people solidly for a good week, and then you can take a couple of days to recharge your social battery and just kind of be to yourself. Like, me and my partner don't spend every waking moment of every day together. If we're having a particular day where they just want to lay in bed all day and I want to go and do something, I'll go and do something. I'll invite them along or invite them to get involved. But that is obviously not an obligation. So, so it's the same thing with when you're with your best friend. Your best friend you end up spending the majority of your time with within reason, especially if that's all you have. If you just have your family and a best friend, or even just a best friend, you have to learn to miss people. You have to learn to miss people. You have to learn to recuperate from other people, and you are not responsible for anyone's happiness other than your own. If you're trying to make someone happy and trying to push them in a specific direction and they're not ready to take, then they're not ready to take it. It's a fact of life. You can be the most foresighted person and you could see exactly how it's going to play out, but if they're not ready to take certain leaps of faith to progress into adulthood properly, then they won't. And they'll be stuck in their ways until they eventually sit there, look in the mirror and realise, oh shit, I need to do something about it. And when those people come back around, depending on who they are and what they've done, welcome them back in with open arms. Give them that second chance. Because you never know the people that you're going to need in your life. You're never going to know when or where they are needed. This world, we are social creatures. We are social animals. We need groups of people. We can't just have one person. I don't see many animals in the animal kingdom that will just be in a pairing without having other people in a pack. You have to have options, you have to have variation. Life gets lonely otherwise. I mean, some people, I'm talking as an extroverted person. Introverts like their own company, and that is fine, and they can enjoy their own company. But social interaction is a healthy thing. You know, I used to work in domiciliary as a carer, and one of my clients turned around and said to me that this world wasn't built for ones, it was always built for twos. I'd say threes or fours in a social paradigm, not in a don't even know what the word for it is. The term's completely polyamorous, and yeah, she's right. She was right. You know, you have to. You have to have those relationships with other people as well as yourself, and you have to build your world around it. So, to kind of tie this off into a little bow, sorry, it's another short episode. I will try and, I can't talk that much, this in depth for, you know, an hour. Most podcasts are an hour. I try and leave little tidbits of episodes. It's mainly at the moment just me talking to provide anyone with some form of help or service that they may not have from anywhere else. And obviously, I know that to the people that have been tuning in, thank you very much. To the people that have only just started tuning in, welcome, thank you very much. I hope that whatever this provides for you provides you with some solace and affirms for you that you're not alone, because I am not producing this in a way that it would seem to be fake. I'm producing this in such a way that it speaks from the soul, it speaks from the heart, it speaks from someone that understands it, that has been through it. You get people that try to talk to you about mental health that in actuality have little to no understanding, because either they're neurotypical or they've gone into the subject to learn it because it fascinates them. For the people that do it because they want to help people, because they understand, is a lot more powerful than someone that empathizes and wants to comprehend it. That might not make a lot of sense. I know what I was going for with that one. I'm hoping you guys as well. If I can try and say it in another way, someone that has only ever observed it is, there's a lot of people that have only ever observed mental health. There's not a lot of people. There's also a lot of people that have experienced it. It's the people that have experienced it, especially like myself, that are coming onto doing this podcast. As a person who experienced it, I can understand a lot more than someone that's just observing it. Observing is more theoretical. You get a theoretical understanding rather than a practical understanding, and that really kind of dismisses, mental health in the sense of calling it practical. I don't mean it like that. I don't, I'm sorry if that raised anyone's eyebrows and made anyone go, what the fuck, that wasn't what I was going for. But to kind of summarize and give you guys more of an understanding of that, I hope it helped. I hope it, clarified what it was I was trying to say. So, without further ado, thank you for listening. I'm going to be badgering my my colleague who's working on this channel with me to jump on an episode. And remember, towards improving mentally every day, it takes time. I'll see you guys next week.